Всем привет! Hola a todos! Saluto limão! In this video, I wanted to welcome to this video, welcome to my channel. And in this video, I wanted to talk more about how I created my own language learning resource as an independent language learner. So I think the previous video I talked about what makes a successful language learner, and I stand by my opinion that to be a successful language learner, you have to be an independent language learner, meaning you seek out your own resources. You don't of course, the easiest is to have a friend or a relative who speaks the language that you want to learn, and you could just ask them the whole day, how do you say this, how do you say that, and just be exposed to the language as you go through your day. But for example, in my case, if you don't know, I grew up speaking 5 languages. We were taught 3 in school, and 2 I learned at home. 1 I was forced by my parents to learn, and the other one I picked up because of exposure. So I'm not talking about that kind of language learning, although if you wanted to learn a language of, for example, you're an immigrant and you have family outside of the current country you're staying in, then having your friends and relatives actually as basically the internet, they are your personal translator. Google everything. You just ask them, how do you say this or that. That would be the fastest, that would be the easiest. But in my case, what I'm talking about is my 6th, 7th, and 8th language. I started Portuguese in 2021 and Russian at the end of 2021, and then I started French at the end of 2022. So right now I'm learning all 3 languages, still learning them. And for Portuguese, I am at a lower intermediate. I can watch movies, read with subtitles, sometimes without subtitles. I can speak. I'm the most comfortable among the 3 languages, and then Russian. I'm an upper beginner. I still cannot watch full-length movies, but I can probably get by with really basic. Hi, how are you? Where do you live? What did you do? Stuff, introductory dialogues. And then I'm a 100% beginner in French. And the only thing I could do is recognize if a person is speaking French. Probably. Excuse me. So this is in this video I wanted to share how I created my own materials for learning languages. So this is as per my experience with learning Russian, Portuguese, Russian, and then now French. So okay, I want to first to say that it may be difficult to find your own resources. Sorry, I just had chocolate cake. So it may be difficult to find resources depending on the language that you are learning. For example, Portuguese. There are a lot of people speaking Portuguese, but majority of the resources are in Brazilian Portuguese. Even Netflix has more Brazilian Portuguese movies and series compared to European Portuguese. But I learned European Portuguese, so it was a bit difficult. I had to look for specific YouTube channels and look for audio dubs and subtitles specifically in European Portuguese. But I think other languages would be even more difficult. Like for example, I speak Cebuano. It's a another language of the Philippines. Philippines has 140 something different languages, and I speak two of them, Filipino and Cebuano. Filipino is the national language along with English as an official language. So basically, if you don't live in a place where Cebuano is being spoken, you would only probably get news news feed in English. No, news feed in Cebuano, and that would be more advanced and not for beginners. So that's just an example. So it may be difficult depending on the language you're learning, but for the most part, if you're learning English, Spanish, Mandarin, Chinese, Japanese, Arabic, and in Hindi maybe, Hindi, a lot of people speak Hindi, you would have resources. So with that out of the way, let's say now you have a language that you want to learn. For example, I can start, let's say, for example, Russian. I usually start with words and phrases that I want to learn. And most of the time, and I always start with hi, hello, how are you, more introductory things. My name is, and the questions that like you would introduce yourself. So my name is, so the question is, what's your name? And then, where do you live? I live at. Where do you come from? I come from. And then my nationality. What do you do for work? What's your profession? Where did you go to school? Where did you go for high school? Where did you go to university? Did you go to university? Stuff like that. What languages do you speak? What's the tempo? What do you do in your free time? What are your hobbies? Stuff like that. And then I write them down in English first, and then I translated it into, the first one was Portuguese. And when I got better at Portuguese, I used Portuguese as my reference and then translated it into Russian. And then now from my Russian's still not that good, so now I translate from Portuguese to French because that's easier. It's easier for me to understand. So that's the first one. And creating my own, okay, because each person has their own lexicon of words, vocabulary that they need for daily life. The words that I use are different, especially in the intermediate stages where my work and the field that I'm in is very different from other people. Like, for example, Hokkien. Hokkien is a southern Chinese language, and me and my family, we speak that. But between me and my cousins, we're fourth generation immigrants to the Philippines, and there are things that I know how to say in my industry, then my cousins would learn, or they know how to say things that are specific to their industry. And that's part of my personal lexicon, that's a part of their personal lexicon. So since Hokkien is not our strongest language, English and Filipino would be stronger. Maybe Filipino, I'm not sure, but I'm definitely 100% more comfortable in every area with English. I can read I can read non-fiction books. I can read fiction. I can read non-fiction. I can read technical books. I can write essays in English, and I 100% cannot do that in Mandarin, Cebuano, Hokkien, or even Filipino. That would be very, very difficult. And yes, so basically, what I do is I start with words or phrases that I want to learn how to say. And then I use an online translator to translate those words and phrases, and then I have it in my notebook. So I have different notebooks. You could do this on a laptop if you want to, but I like to rest my eyes sometimes and read things on paper. Yes, so I have my notebook for I have my notebook for Russian, I have my notebook for French, and I have my notebook for Portuguese. And at times I would review them. So next, I already have a list of things that I want to learn to say. And then now I would watch YouTube. I like the Easy Languages series. They have all sorts of languages like Easy Mandarin, Easy Japanese. There's Easy Russian. I use that a lot right now. And then Super Easy French. I also started with Easy Portuguese, but once again, they have more content in Brazilian Portuguese than European. I think they only have 5, and there was a time that I actually memorized the whole thing in for the European Portuguese, those 5 videos. And then when it comes to the words and okay, so when I watch these YouTube videos, I would recognize words and phrases that I wrote down using the online translator, and I know that translating using online translators would give you more of a textbook or formal way to say things. So this is where YouTube, Netflix, and all these content online would help, because they would be speaking in they're going to have casual conversations unless you watch documentaries, but even then it's more like a spoken dialogue compared to written dialogue. So that's how I compare. Like, I want to say for example, how are you, or how was your day, and then I would see it online on YouTube, and okay, this is how they arrange the words in when they're speaking casually. But right now, even with, I remember the time probably 10 years ago when I tried to use Google Translate to translate from English to Mandarin, and since my level of Mandarin is a low or mid intermediate after 13 years of learning it in high school, I mean elementary to high school, I mean basic education until secondary education, so I knew that the words were kind of jumbled. So when I had to type something, I just I type it in English, and then I translate it on Google Translate, and then I put the correct order of words as I learned it in school and as I would say it naturally. But I think today with DeepL and even Google Translate, they have gotten really has gotten better and is able to probably imitate the spoken language more. So there. So start with words or phrases that you want to learn, translate it, and that's going to be basically your basic phrase book. And then watch YouTube for yes, watch YouTube Easy Languages, and then you can just type it Easy Russian, Easy French. And then the next would be looking for, so the next one would 100 wouldn't be free anymore, because you would have to look for children's story books or books that you enjoyed. Like in my case, I started reading in Portuguese. Even if I was just starting, I started to read O Alquimista and Harry Potter e Pedra Filosofal. Pedra Filosofal. Okay. Oh, because these two books I've read in English, and I know the story by heart. So reading it in Portuguese would help me to recognize this word and this sentence translated to English. I also listened to O Principezinho, the Little Prince in Portuguese, and right now I'm doing that in French. Although my knowledge in French is just bonjour, salut, really basic stuff, really introductory stuff. But since I've read The Little Prince in English and then in Portuguese, so basically it's just, okay, I know the story and it's easier for me to follow the story in French as well. There. And the last one that I have here is, personally, again, this one is also something, this one is not free, of course. These are books on teach yourself, or I do have it, Russian, teach yourself Russian, complete Russian, and then also like the For Dummies series, like Russian for Dummies, French for Dummies. You could also get that book. I think that you can learn any language without books. Like I said, the two languages that I learned at home are all just taught to me by my parents, and the reason why we have to create our own language material if it's a language that really no one speaks, no one around you speaks, and no one's in your country speaks. Like for example, if maybe Filipino is not, yeah, maybe like for example you live in Europe or wherever and you want to learn Filipino, then you would have to look for your own materials. So that is just my personal process on how I created my own language materials. So basically, I start with words or phrases that I want to learn, translate it using a dictionary, cross-check it with the spoken language on YouTube or Netflix. So I'd be spending a lot of time watching those, and then YouTube, and then children's storybooks, and then other books for like teach yourself or for dummies. I personally do not own a specific grammar book for any language. Portuguese, no. Russian, no. I what I have in Russian is more of 101 Simple Conversations by Ollie Richards, and then learning a language through stories, also by Ollie Richards, and then basically books and authentic books. I just bought a bilingual book of Fyodor Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, which is a classic, Russian classic. I read it in high school in English, and even at my level, reading classics is still not attainable. But this book it says it's bilingual, and it could be for Russian learners, and I really don't mind reading it. For like, if I have trouble reading it, I'm okay with it. I don't have to read it in a month or something, or I could read it slowly and try to understand and digest the story. Yeah, I think I'll have fun. So that is something I'm looking forward to. So that this is this video, and I hope that what I spoke about would help you in learning the language of your choice. So thank you for watching this video, and see you in the next one. Bye.